Hey friends, get excited. I've got a fun guest today. Today I'm speaking with Ashley Stahl, and Ashley just has the most fascinating background. We're going to talk about how she used to have her whole background is in counterterrorism. We're going to talk about my dreams of being a spy, which have never come to fruition, and how she made a transition from counterterrorism into career coaching. I mean, talk about a pivot. And I know a lot of you are in like pivot seasons right now. You're like, how do I even do this? And so Ashley's story is a really good one for you to listen to. And so, she spent tens of thousands of dollars on her own personal brand. And after she did her transition, and then she realized that a lot of entrepreneurs are spinning their wheels and wasting money on PR efforts and trying to build a personal brand and actually not moving the needle in their career. So that's when she ended up doing a couple of TED Talks that went viral. And she really learned the value of both TEDx being a superhighway to launching and scaling your brand, and just speaking on stages in general. So I hope that you love this podcast episode. It was so much fun to be able to record this with Ashley. And I'm still a little sad that I'm never probably going to be a spy or an assassin. But without further ado, let's go ahead and give Ashley and I a listen. All right. Ashley, hi.
Hello. I'm so excited to be with you.
I'm excited to be with you as well. I was on your podcast recently. Remind me the name of your show.
The U-Turn podcast, YOU Turn. And it's the name of my book too, U-Turn, all
Which
about.
is, I know, look at that. Look at that symmetry there.
See
That's
what I did
awesome.
there?
I love it. Well, thanks for being here today. This is going to be a lot of fun. So I've already kind of told them a little bit about you, but I always think it's so much better when somebody uses their own words. And so, I obviously was reading a script, but will you tell people like what it is you do today, which is a full swing from what you used to do. So we'd love to have just a little bit of the story on who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I'm doing today traces back over a decade and a half ago. So, right now, the past year and a half, I've always had different ghostwriting companies, but now I own Wise Whisper Agency. We've helped craft over 100 TEDx talks, dozens of keynotes, and books as well that we've ghostwritten. And
Yes.
we've also booked more than 100 clients on stage for TEDx, and we book clients on many different stages at many different places as keynote speakers, panelists, stuff like that. And this agency
Wild.
really was born when I was working in national security and counterterrorism in my 20s. And before we hit record, you were asking me about that whole
I'm like,
era.
okay, I gotta have more background on this. Okay,
Yeah.
so you were in your 20s
Yeah.
and you were doing counterterrorism.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
break that down. Tell me what that is.
Yeah.
How on the earth did that happen, et cetera? What'd that look like?
I feel like Elwoods whenever somebody asks me about my time in counterterrorism, because I really look at myself in this little screen on Zoom and I'm like, I really don't look the part.
Right.
Um,
Which is probably why you were great at it.
yeah, right. That's the thing.
Okay.
Women in the intelligence arena are sometimes called honey traps because we can use our beauty and our gifts to make things happen in the intelligence arena that perhaps our male counterparts cannot.
Honey traps. This is me making notes. A honey
You
trap.
know,
Okay.
your girl is a honey
Well,
trap.
okay, so just real quick, let me give you
Yeah.
just a little bit of context. So my husband knows that I wish that I could be a spy. And like I've always said, like, did you see the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
hmm
Okay,
I just watched that TV show too. The TV show is awesome.
oh, I didn't know there is a TV show.
Oh,
But
girl.
every time I watch that movie, I'm like, why is this not our life? Why am I not a spy or an assassin? But it's because I have zero ability to like, I don't do a good job of like being aware of my surroundings and things. So anytime my husband will say something like, honey, what color is Noah's car? Like our oldest son, and I'll be like, okay, I know it's, white. Okay, what kind of a vehicle is it? And I'll be like, no, I mean, I don't know those details. He's like, and this is why you can't be a spy. He does that all the time. He's like, spy work. This is why you can't
What
be
a
a spy.
troll.
Were you a spy? You were not
No,
a spy.
I was on my path. So that's what I was pursuing. I learned French. I started taking Arabic at UCLA. That was just kind of like the path I was on. I think I was really impacted by 9/11. I think
Mm,
that's how memory works, right? Like if you look back in time to your childhood, your upbringing, your
yeah.
adolescence, you usually just remember very specific moments where there was
Mhm.
something unusual happening, right? So
Yes.
it could be a birthday that something happened, it can be something traumatic, or it could be a snowstorm. Weather actually really becomes memorable for people if it's off the beaten path. It's
Interesting.
very
Yeah.
unusual. So for me, 9/11, and for a lot of people, I'm sure that was a core memory that you kind of remember
Yes.
where you were standing, what you were
Yep.
thinking.
Yep.
And I've always liked to be helpful and as nurturing as possible. And there was something about that happening that I always knew I was good with words. I always knew people leaned in to communicate with me. I always
Mhm.
identified as a good communicator. And I thought, you know what? National security is a place that I can use this gift for the greater good and help as many people as possible. If you're a protector, if you're a giver, the
Yeah.
highest way of doing that I knew was national security, like the amount of people that I could help. So I just went into that. I was always good at languages. It's a
Uh,
words thing, right?
did you
I'm good
go
at
into
words
that
things.
like in college, or did you sit down to
Yeah.
Google and you're like, how can I get into?
No, no, I didn't. I literally started in college. So
Okay,
actually
awesome.
I started advanced French classes in middle school. And I was so good at the language that my teacher on in French 1, I'll
Uh-huh.
never forget. He asked us to describe a photograph and it was French 1, so people are kind of like fumbling and bumbling through
Had two
the
years of French.
language, right? So it's like the language skills to get you to say my shirt is red, my name is
Yes.
Ashley, I'm in this
Yes.
picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I breezed through it. I started talking about all sorts of things, like about the photo. And he pulled me aside after class, and I was, seventh grade. And he
Hmm.
said, "Where'd you learn French?" And I said, "Right here." And so that was the beginning of me really understanding. And I learned Spanish when I was a little girl. So I just thought maybe this is just a gift I have, and I really stuck to it. Unfortunately, I must have gotten an ego inside of me about it because let me tell you, when I started to learn Arabic, I had a whole belief that I was going to be great at it because I knew French. And
Yes.
Arabic is a completely different
Different.
planet than
Yeah.
French. But all of it said, I collected language skills throughout high school and college.
Okay.
I studied abroad in college. I lived in France for a year. I did not live in Paris. I lived in the West Coast, very, non-English speaking region. Lived
Okay.
with this family. It's funny, my dad's name is Alan. It's actually his birthday today.
Oh,
And
happy
my
birthday,
French
Ellen.
dad
Awesome.
is Alan. So
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
yeah, and so I ended up really absorbing their culture, their way of life. I was taking advanced history and politics classes in French at the French University, so I really assimilated and studying national security. The American school system in the United States tells history through the lens of a pro-Israel point of view. The French education system tells history in the Middle Eastern politics realm through a pro-Palestinian rights point of view. So I learned history on both sides of the fence and assimilated through two different cultures. And I just told myself, I'm going to do everything I can to make an impact. And so I got into a top 20 school in the world for national security at King's College in London, got my graduate degree, walked my way into the Pentagon as a 20 something. They usually like to hire people who have military experience. I'm a civilian. I wanted to become a spy one day because I thought how people talk to me and lean into me, I can use
Yeah.
these skills. And I ended up doing all the stuff. I got an internship in London when I was in graduate school. I worked for the same law firm that represented Princess Diana. I
Wow.
did human rights there. I did all the things, got my way there. And then I realized, wow, I am way too sensitive to be working in counterterrorism. I did not know myself at all. 22 years old, walking in the doors. I was
Hmm.
given a pretty high responsibility because of my language skills.
Yes.
And I took the back
And you're
door.
a honey trap.
I'm a honey trap
You're a
girl.
honey trap. So
I used
yes,
this honey, got myself some money.
that's
Nice
awesome.
spoken word. So yeah, I made my way in and I got a almost six-figure salary, really,
Mhm.
really young. I was a supervisor on a program relating to Afghanistan, which is not what I studied. I studied the Middle East and North Africa. Then they had me learning Dari, which is what they speak in Afghanistan most often. And that was the beginning of me realizing I need to overhaul who I am. And during that time on the weekends, I would help friends get job offers because I was so good at job hunting because I'm such a good communicator that I got
Okay.
so many opportunities more than for 2 years. Honestly, it's so crazy, Jennifer. For 2 years, I was getting job offers leaking on from like an 8 week period where I was job hunting because I hit the pavement and I have an
Yeah.
ability, it's a unique ability I have to go single focused into something and really hit it up. I can grow a company really fast. It's like I just hyper focus. So
You have ADHD.
job offers, you know,
Do you have ADHD?
I do. I do. I have ADHD. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know.
because that hyper focus, man, it is
Woo.
such a gift. We have a kiddo who has ADHD, and like I just remember last year over Christmas break, she decided she was going to learn how to jump rope. I've never been so tired of hearing a stinking jump rope in all of my life because like she was so dialed in to the jump rope. But it really is like a gift at,
Yeah.
to be able to hyper focus to that degree. So, okay, so keep going. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So I literally, got all these job offers, helped all these people get
Mhm.
job offers. And on the weekends, they'd say, you should be a career coach. And I remember being like, what does that even mean? Like, what is a
Mhm.
career coach? It was like 2012, 2011,
Before it
2010.
was a thing, way
It
ahead of its
wasn't even
time.
a thing, 2010. And I remember being like, what even is that? Like a hockey coach? Like, are they standing outside the State Department cheering for me when I come out? Like, what is a career
Yeah.
coach? So I ended up starting a practice, leaving the Pentagon, filling up my clients, but it really started in this moment where I was offered a TEDx talk. I remember getting an award in national security, meeting this woman. She came up to me. She said, I said to her, you look so magical. Like, who are you? And she just those people, she had an aura.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, I just spoke at TEDx at the UN. And, TEDx brand was pretty new at that time,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah.
maybe 5 years in. And I remember thinking, wow, that's so incredible. I would love to do that someday.
Mhm.
And she
To do a
looked at
TEDx
me.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to be a speaker. I'd never spoken on a stage in my life. I didn't even know. I knew I was a good communicator, but I'd
Right.
never used my communication skills to inspire people like that.
Yeah.
So I just said, oh, one day over the rainbow. And she looked at me like, oh, yeah, you've got this. And the next week, I was in Istanbul for a work assignment and I was doing an intelligence report. There was a protest. There's tear gas spewing in the air in Taksim Square in Istanbul. And I remember running for cover because my eyes were burning from it. And I get a
Mhm.
text message, and I feel it on my leg, this little
Yeah.
buzz. And I peer through these like teary eyes, and I see this girl. Her name was Sarah, which is so weird because two of my best friends are named Sarah. I have this kinship
Mhm.
with Sarah's. I feel like
Okay.
I don't know how life does that, but
That's awesome.
this woman, and she said, I referred you to speak at TEDx Berkeley, and I wish you the best. And I got an email. And they asked me for my speaking reel, like what even is a speaking
Yeah.
reel?
Did they
Now
want
what?
to talk to you about like the counterterrorism? Is that what they wanted you to
Yeah,
give us?
they
Okay.
wanted me to come on and do a talk, and I was at the forefront of things with Afghanistan, when NATO was there and all that stuff. So I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like what even is a speaking reel? And so I grabbed my iPhone 5 or whatever iPhone was out in
Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
2011. And I typed in what is a speaking reel into Safari, and I was at my motel in Istanbul. I propped the phone against the bathroom wall. I
Mhm.
pulled the curtain behind me and I started talking on video at my iPhone.
Love it.
And that was my speaking reel. It was like the most makeshift, scary looking speaking reel. And I sent it to them. And by some sort of miracle, they gave me the opportunity. And it ended up being a massive TEDx event with 4,000 people in the audience in an auditorium at Berkeley. And I went on stage after Guy Kawasaki, who,
Oh
if anybody
gosh.
knows anything about Guy Kawasaki, the
Yes.
guy, he approaches, everybody backstage was nervous except for that guy. He
Right. Right.
walked in like he was waiting in a bathroom line, like no thought, just nothing. He just
I
walked
know
on.
what that feels like because I've spoke after Chip and Joanna Gaines before. Do you know
Yeah,
who Chip and Joanna
yeah,
are? Okay.
yeah.
And so I'm like, I knew everybody was just there for them. And I'm like, how do I follow Chip and Joanna Gaines? You know what I mean?
Right.
And then I would speak and then I was a Chip and Joe sandwich. They actually spoke ahead of me and behind me
Chip and
both.
Joe
But
sandwich.
Chip and Joe sandwich. But yeah, so I can only imagine with Guy Kawasaki. Okay. So keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. So I go on and I forgot my lines, and then I suddenly just clicked in and I gave that talk. It ended up going viral, got a few million views over the years. And
Awesome.
over the course of 8 years, 80% of my leads in my coaching practice came from this one 9-minute thing. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm 23, 24 years old, whatever I am. And why are we doing so much stuff for our PR, for our brand, when there's a platform? Because not only TED, but TEDx, they both have 40 million subscribers on YouTube.
It's amazing.
And
Yes.
it's like so many people are trying to build their career, not even just as a speaker, but obviously it's great to build your speaking
Yes.
career.
Yeah.
And they're thinking to themselves, how do I get leads? How do I get seen? How do I build a brand? Well, after watching myself and so many people spend all this money on PR, which can be a valuable investment, it depends. I'm thinking to myself, I just spent 2 months memorizing a 9-minute thing, which is, by the way, 3 pages typed. It's not a big
Right.
lift, right?
Right.
And it has given me financial security and then some. And I ended up getting speaking engagements. I took my speaking fee from 5K per keynote to 30K per keynote.
Love
Most of those leads were from the one TEDx. So I gave a second TEDx
it.
talk
Mhm.
years later because I felt so weird about my first try speaking ever being so
Yeah.
there on the internet. Because honestly, now I run a speech writing house and we
Right.
we are truly, I mean, Jen, I know everybody says they're amazing. The people on my team are world class. Like
Awesome.
my executive creative director was crafting decks that were presented to Steve Jobs. She was at Apple for 13 years. She was writing
Amazing.
speeches for his executives. Like we have the writer from TV shows like Succession. It's
Yeah. That's
truly
amazing.
world class, right? So what I'm doing now, it's like I feel embarrassed that my first stab at something is out there. And I knew I had a gift that I could really
Yeah.
show up for years later. So I think it was like 6, 7 years later in 2019, I gave a second talk called How to Figure Out What You Really Want. That
Okay.
one ended up going up to the top 100 on the TEDx channel.
Wow.
And that one changed my life. I mean, I got a speaking agent. I went on a book tour. I got more book deal offers than I knew what to do with. I got so many leads. I got a spokesperson deal for 4 years, millions of dollars in revenue tied to leads from those TEDx talks. And I just remember feeling like, why doesn't everybody do this? And so eventually I started helping people brainstorm and craft their TEDx talks. I came across a woman who helped with booking TEDx talks.
Okay.
And I thought, I don't want to start a business helping people book these things. What if they can't
Right.
get somebody booked?
Yeah.
I referred her 39 clients over 2 years, career coaching clients in my practice that I would help brainstorm their talks. She booked every single one. And that was where Wise Whisper Agency was born, is now our agency helps craft and book TEDx talks. And all our client needs to do is show up for 4 conversations with us on Zoom for us to
Okay.
be able to get the entire job done. So
That is
that's what I'm up to.
crazy. That is a crazy like career, a crazy all the things. How did
Yeah.
you end up doing speech writing for the Obamas? Because you did that somewhere in there as well, didn't you?
Yeah, yes and no. So I never speech wrote for anybody. I actually learned speech writing because when I
Okay.
got that first TEDx
Gotcha.
talk, I found somebody in the administration and I said, his name was Jesse. I said, Jesse, I am in so much, like, I don't even know what to say. I'm so scared, but I'm about to speak in front of 4,000 people and it's going to be on YouTube and I've never talked in front of anybody. Can you give me tips? And
Okay.
that was where I learned speech
Oh,
writing.
that's awesome. That
Yeah.
is awesome. That's so
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, so do you think then, do you think it's possible for people that don't like public speaking to get good at it? Can I ask you that first of all?
Yeah.
It's what the top three fears of humans, isn't it? Like, isn't
Yeah.
public speaking? Is it possible for someone who doesn't like public speaking but understands the value of having a stage like you did? Is it a valuable, worthwhile, and is it even possible for them to learn
Yeah.
how to love public speaking?
I think that we live in a world right now where it's getting pretty non-negotiable to have a speech in your back pocket and to be able to communicate in a concise way about what you do in a way that enchants people to show up and say yes to you. If you think
Yeah.
about anything important that's ever happened in your life, it's because there are words going between these two ears on your head, and those words move something along for you and you took action. It's all words. So if you can craft something, and so this is interesting. We had a client recently show up and we helped him craft his TEDx speech. We got him booked on stage for a TEDx. We helped him get booked. And his talk was about the banking system.
Okay.
And there's 3 layers to a talk. And where I'm going with this is he was able to use this talk so many ways. So the first layer is the bones, right? It's your tips, it's your talking points. It's how do you open up the talk? What are your 3 tips or 2 tips? How do you close it? A TEDx script specifically is 8 to 18 minutes. I'm not affiliated with TEDx or the brand. We're just an agency doing great
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And I know that you can't really fit more than 2 to 3 tips into a 20-minute or even a 45-minute talk. You really don't want to do more than 3 to 4
Okay.
talking
Yeah.
points.
Mhm.
So if somebody listening now wants to do a talk like a TEDx talk, you're looking at 8 to 18 minutes, that's 3 to 6 pages. That's not a heavy lift. So if you're not a public speaker, that's still not a heavy lift. Keynotes are a different beast. If you're looking at
Yeah.
an hour, you can't memorize that. You need a
Right. That
deck.
has to be notes.
You're
Yeah.
you're on your feet. Something that's shorter is a power tool for you.
Okay.
So this client, we kind of got the bones right of his speech. What's going on in the banking system? There's racism, there's marginalization of women. Yet women couldn't get loans by themselves, access to credit, all these things. Well, what's the second layer of his talk? And this is what I teach my speechwriters. The second layer is what it's really about, how to really connect to the heart of people. So you've got the brain of the talk, the bones of the talk.
Yeah.
But what is the heart of the talk? What's the soul of the talk?
Mhm.
If you zoom out and look at his talk about the banking system, it was really a talk about giving people a second chance in life.
Okay.
It was really a talk about how people are not paperwork and how we need to see people in our credit and banking system beyond their credit score. We need to
Okay.
understand their life story to make decisions about giving them credit. And we have a responsibility to do that. So it was about redemption, right?
Okay.
Um, and then the third piece of the talk was really the message, which I was saying people aren't paperwork. That's kind of a message, right?
Yes.
Um, and my point here is he took this little 10-minute, 3-page talk, and it's geared for him to get a TEDx talk, and he ended up getting one and doing one. Um, but what's cool about that is he got an award at a gala. And they said to him, yeah, you have 10 minutes to accept the award. You could say whatever you want. And most people are going to use 1 minute and pop off, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
He thought, you know what? I'm already memorizing this TED Talk because I told him, I said, you better memorize it. It's 3 pages. You've done harder things in your life. Memorize it because what does memorization do? It creates certainty. What does certainty do? It creates confidence. What does confidence do? It gives you space to be
Mhm.
yourself, right? And so he ends up getting on stage and thanking the audience for the
Mhm.
award and practicing his 10-minute talk because he's like, I
Awesome.
may as well. And at the end, he made an ask for them to donate to a cause he cares about. And he got $2.6 million donated.
That is incredible.
And that's the thing is we never know when we have an opportunity to communicate.
Right.
But wouldn't it be useful to have an 8 to 10 minute thing that perfectly shares what you do? Maybe you're
Mhm.
in a business group. And the thing about memorization, I'm not an advocate for you to memorize everything. But an 8 to 10 minute script, whether it's a
Mhm.
TEDx talk or anything, is that when you memorize something, when you get it in your cells, then you can focus on your energy. There's too many speakers going on stage looking for their words in their head as they're standing there. That's a crazy nervous system exercise we all go
Yes,
through.
that is.
A bunch of eyeballs looking at you, and you need to say the
Yes.
right thing, and you need to be
Right.
appropriate, and whew, right? But
Yep.
if you memorize it, and that's the thing with a lot of speakers or business owners, is I tell them, offer a 10 to 15 minute thing and say that you do 20 to 30 minutes of Q&A. 20 to 30 minutes of Q&A is a completely different form of speaking on your nervous system.
Yeah. Q&A is my absolute favorite.
Yeah, it's so easy. How can
I
it not be?
love Q&A.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're someone who can think on their feet and you're a decent communicator, Q&A is just because you don't have, I don't have to do any preparation. I already know what I know. You know what
You
I'm
know what
saying?
you know. But that's the
Exactly.
thing is some people
Yeah.
don't even need to be able to think on their feet if you truly know your expertise
Right. Right.
and
Right.
people are asking questions.
Yeah. So in terms of like, business owners doing TED Talks, like how important do you think is building a personal brand for small business owners where like speaking on stages, like a stage like TED Talk would be important?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. As we've been scaling, obviously we book people for many stages and not just TEDx. And my booker was really helping me understand. We were talking together about this. There's really two types of speaking. There's speaking for your brand, and then there's speaking to be a full-time high-paid speaker. Very
Mhm.
different animals. And people need to
Yes.
pick a lane. If you stay in the middle, you don't really own what either one can fully do for you.
Right.
So, speaking for your brand is you have a book, you have services, you want to get it out there. What better way? I mean, you can go on a podcast like we are here, but
Yeah.
obviously, some people are going to be listening to us as passive listeners, right? They're in
Yep.
the car, they're doing multiple things, they're
Laundry. Yep.
backseat doing laundry.
Yeah.
It's so different than when you're sitting in the audience and your full attention is on a human right there in front of
Yes.
you.
Yes.
So, nothing will beat being in front of 300 people who are
I
ideal
agree.
aligned clients
Yep.
that want what you have. And all you need to do is share it in a way that they can understand, that they can resonate with, that they can feel the connection to you. That's not a manipulative pursuit. I think it's a powerful pursuit. And I think a lot of people feel manipulative with sales, but and
Yeah.
that's the thing is you can just stand there in your magic. So lately we've had an offer that's been taking up a lot of space in our company is pitching clients for their brand. We pitch clients to up to 40 stages per month. And these
Okay.
could be virtual, these can be in person, they can be in your state only. We have a client in Texas. He's like, I just want to speak in Texas to wealthy audiences that are Christian, right? Like that was his thing.
Yes.
He's a minister in that.
Wealthy audiences that are Christian. I love it. Okay.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's what we're pitching him for because
Mhm.
we live in a big world, right? And there's so
Yeah.
many opportunities. And so he's speaking for his brand. And so we pitch people not for paid speaking engagements, but for targeted aligned audiences. We try
Mhm.
to get at least audiences of 100, but if it's super
Yes.
aligned, let's say it's a business mastermind, it's his exact customer, maybe it'll be 20 people.
Yeah.
And obviously he can refuse any speech we book for him, right? We can ping him and say, hey, are you interested? He could say, no, we're here for him. But the point is that that is where I think the rubber hits the road for you as a small business owner for your
Mhm.
brand. I think the second piece being paid as a high paid speaker. Do you get paid more if you speak more often? Of course. But
For
high
sure.
paid speakers who want to be full time speakers, they're in a different arena. They're in a business transaction.
Yeah.
The meeting event booker is hiring them to speak on a topic they want. You
Mhm.
suddenly put yourself in a position where you're a couple standard deviations away from your exact zone of genius sometimes. Because if you ask me to speak about speech writing, how to write a speech that goes viral and changes lives, or on the TEDx channel or any channel, right? You're going to get me in my zone of genius. You're going to get the best 80/20 from me.
Yeah.
But if I go and market myself as a high paid speaker and to events and bookers, they're going to say, okay, but can you take that and can you make it a little bit more about how to
For this audience.
for
Yeah.
this audience
Yeah.
about dentistry and how
Yes.
to do it in Insta stories. Like, and I'm
Mhm.
like, well, a TEDx speech or a keynote speech is a lot different than an Instagram story, but I could kind of
Yeah.
take principles. You're diluting your expertise. So here's the thing. If you do want to be a high paid speaker, you need to pick a lane. You need to pick one or two keynotes. You need to ace those keynotes and you can't deviate away from those keynotes. That means you need to say no to money because money comes at you. And these speaking event bookers are going to say, how about this, but how about that? And it's like, well, that's not really what you know how to speak on. And you're diluting your gift and you're not presenting yourself. And you forget that you are speaking in front of an audience of people. There's probably corporate event bookers,
Mhm.
people, events people. There's all sorts of people in these audiences all the time, or their cousin does events. If you are the best talk they've ever heard about in their life, they will share you. And so
Yeah.
being a paid speaker, a high paid speaker, I left that circuit. I went on speaking tours. My TEDx made that possible for me because it just brought the
Mhm.
lead gen in. But um, Wise Whisper Agency is more focused on helping people speak for their brand. And that's why, not only if you go viral on the TEDx channel, do you get all those subscribers? But the TED channel I've seen pick people up separately. So my talk that went viral on TEDx, it got picked up on TED, and then I got double virality through it,
Right.
double exposure. And then they had a network of translators translate the words, and then I got international licensing deals on my courses in Asia. So
Wild.
it's wild what it can do. And I'm
Hope
just
it
here for
works.
anybody listening, whether
Yeah.
you want to be a high paid speaker, whether you want to get clients. 80/20 your personal brand.
Mhm.
And that's why at Wise Whisper, we've been so focused on stages for your brand,
Yeah.
TEDx for your brand, for your lead generation, can really skyrocket your
Right.
leads, but also really helping people have access to the best because I don't know. I feel like my grandma always used to say, life's too short for bad haircuts. Like, I don't know why she just used to say, I feel like life is too short for bad haircuts and boring stories,
And
but
boring stories and bad speakers.
yeah, like
Yeah.
as a storytelling house, it's like
Right.
really and so anybody listening, it's like you don't have to work with Wise Whisper Agency to get a, TEDx talk or,
Mhm.
any of that stuff. You can do it on your own, but hire the best help. Like if you're going to go out on the open market and find a
Yes.
writer, find somebody that you're completely captivated by. And if you're not a writer yourself, ask a couple friends that you think are
Yeah.
excellent at writing if they're compelled by whatever writing sample you get,
Mhm.
because there is room on top but there's not a lot of room in the middle, right?
That's good.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of commodities out there. There's a lot of speakers trying to speak, but if you decide you are going to pour yourself, and that's what I love about TEDx for our clients, is they come in to craft their TEDx talk with our
Mhm.
support. And over those 4 Zoom calls with them, we're brainstorming, we're pulling things out of them. We have bots on our meetings making
Yes.
transcripts of their words.
Notes. Yeah.
But it's just so powerful because we're really inviting them to give the greatest talk of their life and nothing less.
I
And
love that.
and it's a decision, right? And I think the TEDx platform just brings that out in people where they're like, shoot, this thing's going to live on for a while. It's a lot of people. It better be my best. But that's my invitation to anybody is don't do it if you don't want to give it your best.
Ashley, how would someone get a hold of you if they're like, I would love to be on a TEDx stage, or I just
Yeah.
need help crafting like the personal speech, or I want to be a professional speaker? What's the best way
Yeah.
for someone to get a hold of you?
Yeah, my website, my Instagram, wisewhisperagency.com, Instagram at Ashley Stahl. And honestly, Jennifer, if anybody comes from you, I would love to gift your audience $1,000 off anything from us.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
please just tell me you come from Jennifer.
Okay,
And as long as it's within the first like 90 days of this episode coming out, we can make it happen.
perfect.
And but yeah, I
That's
feel
so generous.
like in my heart, it's like we all have a message to share. Maybe we're not all meant to share it. Maybe that's not our calling. We're not called to be a big speaker. But people who are listening, you already know, if
Yeah.
that's what you're here
Yeah,
for.
we'll have several people. Because I know I coach women who
Yeah,
that's their heart's desire is to share the giftings that God has given them, the call of God on their life, their story, or whatever on a public stage. So I love that. I feel like I'm called to the online stage, but I love when I see people called to the actual physical stage. So thank you.
special.
Can I ask you some random, just like rapid fire questions, just
Bring
like
it on.
get a way to know Ashley better? Okay, so what's something you could spend hours doing?
Mm, processing, healing. I love hearing people's deepest stories and I love processing and making sense of them with them. Like I could hold so much space for that.
That is so cool. What's the weirdest thing you own? I think
Mm.
that's a hard question for a lot of people.
I'm not that weird, maybe, I'm like, what do I own? Like, oh my gosh, actually, I have a total answer for this. I have a necklace with a Purell sprayer on it because I'm such a germaphobe. It's
That
a
is
pen, it's a
hilarious.
Purell pen with sprayer at the top. And so I not only have a pen necklace, but it
Yes.
also sanitizes.
Hilarious. What was your last big splurge?
Oof. What was it? Probably a handbag like 5 years ago. And ever since then, I've been like, why did I spend $3,000 on a handbag?
I
Like,
know.
all due respect to everybody, I just would rather invest it at this point. I don't know what else.
I had a friend of mine. I was in a mastermind with her for years. She's like, Jennifer, you need to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on a handbag. I'm like, I can't. Like in my head, I just can't make sense of it because in my head, I'm like, I could buy a brand new sofa for that, which I would sit on every night versus carrying, once a month. So funny. We're right here on the handbag thing. I can't do it either. Okay, last one. What's a book that is currently on your nightstand?
I am reading. What am I reading? Ooh, I'm reading Scale Up by Ryan Dice. It's just like
Okay,
one of his
love
random
him.
books. Like it's an online marketing book,
Okay,
obviously.
so smart.
I'm scaling my company right now. We did 50 TEDx talks and a bunch of like, brainstorms with people and crafting
Yeah.
with them. And then we also did a few keynotes in our first year of business, and we're set to triple that in the next 3 to 4 months
That's
alone.
awesome.
So scaling up and learning
Appropriate
all about
business.
it.
That's awesome. Ashley, thank you so much for being here with us
Thanks for
today.
having
I
me.
appreciate you. And I hope that you'll hear from some
Thank
of our listeners. And thank you for all the good that you're doing and in the
you.
world and trying to get people
Same
on
with you.
stages. So, friends, do reach out to Ashley. You've got her website. You can find her on social. And Ashley, thank you. It was great to have you here. All right. Hey friends, wasn't that fun? I mean, Ashley just has a fascinating story and I just love how like God ties things together and transitions people into different things. And isn't it fascinating to just hear the backgrounds and all that? So I know that Ashley and I talked just briefly about building a personal brand. If you don't know, I have a really inexpensive training on personal branding. It's at jenniferallwood.com/brand. You can go grab that if building yourself a personal brand so that you have opportunities like speaking on stage is something that you would love to do down the road. So again, that's at jenniferallwood.com/brand. You can go grab that. Thanks for listening. And I hope that even if you're not someone who wants to do any sort of public speaking, that you'll maybe forward this podcast onto someone that you know who does. So bless you, friends. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.